website, and basically it shows Mayflower, and it shows the distribution of all the recovery equipment and all the things that Exxon mobilized to help clean up the various samples of oil that they had. That's about where the oil spill occurred. Exxon decided that they would use enough equipment to clean up about 10,000 barrels of oil. And you can decide for yourself whether they actually mobilized that. But what I want to do next is I want to take you back to that traumatic morning of March 29th, and we'll look at what Exxon did, and we'll look at how common sense might have instructed them to do something a little differently. So one of the things that makes me mad about Exxon response is they did things that you and I could not possibly do because there are laws against it, and they did things that didn't make a lot of sense. And I'll show you what I mean. March 29th, the oil spill occurred, and they sent out their response team, and the first thing they did was deploy directly onto the site of the spill. As I'll show you in a minute, maybe a little too close. Yeah. Here's a close-up of that site where the oil spill occurred, and you may notice that where they identify the spill, there don't seem to be any houses, which is a little strange because we know there are houses there. We've seen it on video. And what that means is that the image that they gave out to all the institutions and agencies probably is 2009 or 2010. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it means I have better maps on my phone than Exxon, with its vast resources, issued to all the agencies, which became the official source of information. And you may notice that when they deployed their trucks, their vacuum trucks, they put one on top of the pipeline, they put one over at the end of the neighborhood where they saw the spill, and they deployed the others in the channels where the oil was migrating. Now you might ask yourself, wouldn't it have made more sense to put a few more trucks in here to prevent the oil from getting here? But they didn't do that. So let's talk about the oil spill, for example. If you lived there and you decided to change your oil on the street, you would be fined for polluting the neighborhood. And if you said, well, it's not that important because we can push it into the storm drains, you would be fined for polluting the storm drains. Not only that, but the stuff that you would be using is both flammable and explosive. So naturally, the first thought you would have is, good, let's push it into the sewers. The next thing they did is they decided, well, if we can get it out of view, then let's get it through the storm drains and get it down into where? The wetlands, where we know we can't clean it up because they've had lots of experience with oil spills in wetlands, and particularly with these tar sands in the Kalamazoo River, they know that these things cannot be easily absorbed and cannot be cleaned up. So you would be fined again by not only doing damage to the wetlands, but in the recovery operation, you would be fined if you just sent bulldozers into the wetlands and started clearing away. Not only that, you would also be required to restore the wetlands, not only to their previous condition, but you would have to plant wetlands and make sure that the total area of wetlands was not decreased. How much of that did Exxon do? Well, not much. Yet. So here's a satellite image, which I can get on my phone. This is still pre-spill, 2012. As far as I know, there aren't any satellite images of the post-spill area. I keep looking. But you can quite easily see the Pegasus pipeline right through there. And sure enough, these are the three houses, 1, 2, 3. And these are their driveways. Maybe putting driveways over the pipeline wasn't a very good idea. This is a close-up of that image in February 21, 2012. And again, this is the Pegasus pipeline. And where do you suppose they park their trucks? That look familiar? There it is, sitting right there on top of the pipeline. The pipeline is buried between a foot and 2 feet, if you're lucky. And they had that truck going back and forth, over and back, across that pipeline for the first week or so. Now that might have actually weakened the pipeline, and they might not have done that had they used a modern image which told them that, in fact, the pipeline was between the house and the street. So I started thinking, well, where does that pipeline actually go? And you can see, as we looked at before, here's the Pegasus pipeline as it goes under the neighborhood where the break occurs. And then you say, well, now, where did that pipeline really go? Well, you can see it here, and you can see it here, and the rest of the time, it has been sort of obliterated by development and building and so forth. So if you live in, say, this neighborhood, that pipeline does something like that. But I'm sure you don't have to worry about it because naturally Exxon has told us that this is probably the worst break that could happen in this particular situation. So I did some little calculations. This is sort of back of the envelope calculations. We know we have an outside diameter of the pipe of 20 inches. We know the thickness of the pipe. And believe it or not, there are calculators that tell you what the barrels per foot are. So we know that between one valve shutoff and the other, Exxon kindly